9 seasons ago, Inverness had their best ever season with a third place finish in the Premiership and a Scottish Cup win. Just last season, they made it to the Scottish Cup final once again, being defeated by treble winners Celtic. This season, however, in what is their 30th season as a club, has ended in relegation to the third tier, playing in the division for the first time since 1999. Clearly, something has gone terribly wrong. So in this video, I'll be looking at how Caley Thistle rose up to the heights of European football, followed by the fall into disarray that we are seeing right now. First, we need to go back 30 years to the controversial beginnings of the club. Inverness Caledonian Thistle were founded through the merger of Caledonian FC and Inverness Thistle. Inverness Thistle were nearly voted into the Scottish Football League back in 1973, but were beaten out by Edinburgh side Ferranti Thistle, who then became Meadowbank Thistle and then Livingston. It was felt that the reason behind Inverness not getting in was due to their geography. Transport links were not as good back then as they were now, but improvements were made, and in 1993 the Scottish Football League would be expanded by 2 teams. Highland teams would have a chance to come up, with the upper side being omitted being Ross County, but in Inverness there was an issue. Who would represent Inverness? Inverness was home to 3 Highland League sides, Caledonian, Inverness Thistle and Clach-na-Cudden. As a way to guarantee a stronger bid for an Inverness side in the Football League, it was decided that the 3 clubs would merge and give the city a single, bigger team. Clach-na-Cudden, however, did not hold up to their end of the agreement, so it was only Caledonian and Thistle who came together. This came with great controversy. Caledonian were the strongest team in Inverness, and many fans felt they could have done it by themselves, while Thistle fans saw the merger as a Caledonian takeover. In the end, the merger would be complete, with the club's new name being Caledonian Thistle FC, and they would be elected to the Football League. Caledonian Thistle would spend their first 2 years in the 3rd Division, while playing at Caledonian's old stadium, Telford Street Park, but would move into the Caledonian Stadium in 1996, while at the same time adding Inverness to their name. That season would also see them win the 3rd Division, followed by promotion to the 1st Division 2 seasons later. During their time in the 1st Division, they would establish themselves as a mid-table side, but it was in the Cups where they would thrive. February 2000 would see them beat John Barnes' Celtic side 3-1, leading to a newspaper that shall not be named running the headline, "Supercali go ballistic, Celtic are atrocious." The following season would see both a Scottish Cup and League Cup quarter-final, which would be won up the next season by reaching a Scottish Cup semi-final. The 2003-04 season would be a historic one for Inverness. They would reach a 2nd Scottish Cup semi-final in a row, losing to Dunfermline after a replay, would beat Airdrie in the Challenge Cup final, and would win the 1st Division. This promotion to the top flight came with an issue: the stadium. I covered this in its own video, but the Scottish Premiership had a rule where stadiums needed to have 10,000 seats, whilst the Caledonian Stadium had a capacity of 6,280 with only 2,280 seats. After starting the season playing at Pittodrie in Aberdeen, the rules were changed to allow stadiums with a minimum of 6,000 seats, which the club duly sorted, bringing the capacity to 7,500 seats. From January onwards, the club would be playing in Inverness once again and finish their first season in 8th. They would stay as a lower mid-table side before getting relegated from the Premier League. They wouldn't be in the 1st Division for long, however, as they would immediately gain promotion back to the Premiership. The Madness manager during this time was Terry Butcher, who managed the club from January 2009 to November 2013. After gaining promotion to the Premier League, Butcher would guide the club to 7th place with another Scottish Cup quarter-final. Whilst the following season would see a 10th place finish, the 2012-13 season would see a huge improvement in the club's fortunes. With Rangers suffering a financial meltdown, many clubs saw this as an opportunity to bring chaos to the top end of the table. After 27 games, Inverness were sitting in 2nd place, something that wouldn't last with 4th place being where they would finish, missing out on European football by 2 points. Terry Butcher would leave for Hibs during the 2013-14 season, a season where Inverness would finish 5th under new manager John Hughes. Yogi, that's John Hughes' nickname, I'm not talking about the bear of the same name, would in that season guide Inverness to a League Cup final, where they would be defeated by Aberdeen after extra time. Yogi's first season would see Inverness have their best season ever, with a third place finish in the Premiership, giving the club their first European qualification. This would be followed up by a Scottish Cup final win against Falkirk, a run that involved beating Celtic after extra time in the semi-final. Europe wouldn't last long, however, with Inverness getting knocked out after one round of Europa League qualifying by Romanian side Astra Giurgiu. This is where Inverness would have their peak, with the club finishing down in 7th with quarter-final appearances in both domestic competitions the next season, leading to Yogi leaving the club. He would be replaced by Inverness player Richie Foran, who would retire from playing to manage the club. This did not go well. In the League Cup, they would be knocked out in the second round to Alloa, they would be beaten 6-0 by Celtic in the Scottish Cup, and would finish the Premiership season bottom, seeing the club relegated to the Championship for the first time since 2010. With their previous time in the Championship seeing them come straight back up, fans were hopeful of a swift return to the top flight. Whilst their first season would see a Challenge Cup win, they would finish 5th, missing out on the promotion playoffs. Improvements would be seen with a Scottish Cup semi-final before COVID would interrupt the 2019-20 season, with the club sitting second in the league and with a Challenge Cup final to be played. The decision was made to cancel the final and share the trophy with Raith Rovers. Honestly, thank God, we hadn't beaten Inverness in like 20 years at that point. But the shortened 2020-2021 season would see another 5th place finish. 2021-22 saw the club finish 3rd and reach the playoff final where they would get brushed aside by St Johnstone. And whilst the 2022-23 season saw them narrowly miss out on the playoffs again, a Scottish Cup final would bring hope to the fans that soon they may be out of the Championship. Well, you know about monkey paws? Well, they got their wish of getting out of the Championship, but they went the wrong way. The 2023-24 season was one of abject failure, both on and off the pitch. Billy Dodds was under pressure, as despite leading Cali to the cup final, the football being played was not great, and the Scottish Cup run only happened as after their 4th round defeat to fellow Championship side Queen's Park, they were reinstated as the Glasgow side had fielded an ineligible player. After an 87th minute from Jamie Gullen giving Raith their first win against Inverness in 23 years, yes, it was that long, it was very painful to watch. Dodds would be sacked with Inverness having 1 point from their first 5 games. This was after a League Cup group campaign that saw 3 defeats to Dumbarton, Airdrie and Dundee, along with getting knocked out of the Challenge Cup by Arbroath. He would be replaced by Duncan Ferguson, a man whose managerial pedigree included being a caretaker manager at Everton and getting relegated with Forest Green Rovers. If Inverness fans thought the football Dodds played was hard to watch, then they were bound to be sorely disappointed with Ferguson in charge. A self-appointed hard man, stop giggling, Ferguson would play defensive football, and whilst this would initially work with 3 wins and 3 draws in his opening 6 games, there was a slight issue with his tactics. Scoring goals. Inverness would finish the season conceding only 40 goals, the second best defence in the division. Unfortunately, they scored the second least amount of goals, scoring 41. This led to them finishing 9th on the final day with a positive goal difference. A remarkable achievement. While they would get past Montrose with a 1-0 aggregate win, exciting to watch, I am sure, their defence would not be good enough after losing both games to Hamilton Academical, leading to the club getting relegated to League One, the first time they'll be in the 3rd tier since 1999. Off the pitch, however, it somehow gets even worse. Despite making a Scottish Cup final, they have seen issues when it comes to staying afloat. In February, the club announced that they had plans approved to build a battery farm, something that the revenue from will help plug an £800,000 loss the club made according to the 2022 accounts. This wouldn't last long, however, with the council deciding to review the application. Objections were made by councillors and locals for reasons such as noise pollution, loss of green space, and the fact that the hill the building site was on is popular for sledging. That's right, lots of sledging places. In the Highlands. NIMBYism at its absolute finest. This ended up with the council voting 30 to 23 to reject the proposal, removing a potential income source for the club. Because of this, the club's chairman, Ross Morrison, came out asking sponsors to renew early to help with cash flow issues, offering a 15% discount to do so. While the Battery Farm isn't dead yet, as the club are looking to appeal through the Scottish Government, fans have been increasingly concerned over how the club is run. When relegation was confirmed, fans invaded the pitch. Aggies fans to celebrate with their players, and Cali fans to protest against the board and their running of the club. With being relegated to League One, the club will face difficulties on and off the pitch. The club announced that they would stay full-time in what was their first statement after being relegated. 3 days after the game. Being full-time is hard enough in League One. When Raith were in the division a few years ago, we had to run a hybrid model where some part-time players were brought on to help with squad building. Inverness issues is that when it comes to attracting players, their geography means that some players won't want to move up north, wanting to stay in the central belt. The board then, in an effort to stay full-time though, pulled off one of the most mental ideas we have seen in Scottish football for a long time. Moving training and club operations to Kelty. Kelty, if you don't know, is in Fife, 135 miles from Inverness. This means that players will have to travel over 100 miles for home games. The club also claims that this will help attract players along with saving money on accommodation. This has understandably caused uproar from Cali fans, and fans of other clubs are looking on and either laughing or state how embarrassing this move is. The board also says that they will still bring through youngsters through this method. However, everyone is asking the same thing. How? Players in youth academies will still be in high school or college and can't make these 135-mile one-way trips like a full-time player can. It shows incredible short-sightedness from a club that has a history of bringing through youth players. An opportunity for people from the Highlands to get into professional football that has now been taken away from them. Fellow Inverness club Clackacunnen have recently announced their plans for season tickets, including 400 free season tickets for under-16s, stating, "In an age where football has become dominated by global superstars and luxurious teams, it's easy for the next generation to lose sight on who needs them most, their local team." The local team part is something that can be considered a dig at Cali's move to Kelty, and what many fans will say is fully deserved. Inverness, like many clubs, had been considered a community club by their own fans, with players taking part in events that moving to 135 miles away means it's almost impossible to do on a regular basis. It's no wonder some fans wish the club had gone part-time and stayed in League One for a few years to bed in youngsters and rebuild the club in a sustainable manner. Possibly the worst part of this move to Kelty is the fact that it had been planned months ago, meaning that even if they had stayed up, this move would have happened anyway. The fans recently held a supporters trust meeting where over 200 people attended, none of them voicing support for this move. They also voiced support of a season ticket boycott, something that will do further harm to the club's finances, roughly 200k from season tickets alone. Something that the fans are fine about, as it seems like the only way to get their message across to those at the top. Fans even made comments such as preferring administration or even starting all over again than moving to Kelty. But wait, there's more! The issue with renting out Kelty's pitch for training is that Kelty don't own the pitch. Fife Council do. The offices and facilities are owned by Kelty, which Cali are going to be using as well, but the use of the pitch will be determined by Fife Council due to the impact it will have on community use. Somehow, this was never brought up during negotiations, as the council weren't involved in them. The thing with League One is that being full-time isn't a guarantee for promotion. Raith, Falkirk and Dunfermline have all been full-time clubs in the division and failed to get promoted at the first attempt. If Inverness are to gain promotion straight away, and the board may be able to justify their decision. If they fail, however, then the consequences could be serious. In the Championship, there will be clubs with large fan bases making trips around the country, including up to Inverness. Clubs like Falkirk, Dunfermline, Raith and Partick have well-travelling fan bases, and even a trip to Inverness won't stop that. Unless the game's for Friday night kickoffs, then that's understandable to have a lower attendance. League One next season will not have that. The drop-off in attendances in a country where ticket money is such an important part of the club's revenue will have devastating effects if Inverness don't go straight back up. Because let's face it, how many fans are Annan or Montrose going to bring? Sorry if you do support those clubs, by the way, I just needed examples. Even then, playing games against seemingly lesser opponents for a full season isn't going to be a walk in the park. A well-organised part-time team can cause issues and even win the league ahead of you. Believe me, I saw it happen with Arbroath beating Reef to the title. And teams will see you as their big scalp. Inverness need to get their act together if they want to guarantee promotion back to the Championship, but as it stands, that does not seem likely, as they have now lost out on a large sponsorship deal from Norwegian energy company Statkraft, seeing Inverness lose out on a deal worth between £1.4 and £1.7 million. Statkraft had planned to work with the club over a park and ride scheme for their workers, but have pulled out of the deal over funding and prices of the original site. This was swiftly followed by Ross Morris's departure as chairman, something which fans will be happy about, but not enough to see serious change at the top, with Chief Executive Scott Gardner currently still in his position, and who the fans have been directing most of their anger at. Morrison, however, in his interview with the Inverness Courier said that his departure was because of his support of the Kelty move, after suggesting beforehand the board could still make a U-turn on it. Morrison believes the move to Kelty would save the club between £200,000 and £400,000, but the season ticket and merchandise boycott will end up wiping out those savings. This step down was pre-planned, but this was something that still wasn't communicated by the club directly, and it just shows that this club is in a severe mess. It is more likely that Inverness will be spending a long time in League One, something comparable to what Falkirk have just had with 5 seasons, rather than coming straight back up. That is, if they will have a club at all. The board of directors for Inverness have put out a statement saying the board of directors are in discussion with potential new investors into the club and remain hopeful of finding a new investor or new owners. However, in the circumstances we currently find ourselves in following the loss of Statkraft contract at Caledonian Stadium, which was worth 7 figures to the club, and given the new financial position of the club, it is also prudent to approach a suitably qualified insolvency practitioner to advise on how we may proceed should our efforts to find new investment fall short. For clarity, on the football front, we have decided to remain training at Fort George for the foreseeable future. So this is both good and bad for Inverness fans. What it shows is that the Kelty move is now off, but if they do not find new investors, there is a chance of administration striking the club. Something that would be detrimental to the community up in Inverness. Well, there is more good news for Inverness fans. Scott Gardner, the chief executive, has decided to resign from his position on the board. He will be staying to work his notice period, according to board member Graham Bennett, but the fans have got their wish. Board member Graham Bennett is the one who has come out about this, and he has said that there is no interim chairman yet, as nobody wants a job, which, when you consider the current financial predicament, is not surprising. When it comes to the Kelty move, they didn't tell Kelty that they were ditching it. What an incredibly well-run football club. It's probably no surprise that Inverness are in such a mess, when you consider that Scott Gardner's list of achievements whilst at the club include helping to run a concert company to get money in for the club, which ended up getting liquidated, leaving local businesses out of pocket, giving Dodds a 2-year contract when fans already wanted him out, banned the club's only podcast from speaking to anyone in the club after they criticised the regime slightly, made an absolute mess of releasing former players, including those who were injured, set up an automated email system to harass local councillors in an attempt to make them vote favourably for the battery farm. The battery farm in itself, messing up the Statkraft deal, giving Duncan Ferguson a 3-year deal without a relegation clause, and of course this whole Kelty debacle. This is after he was at Hearts, where he forgot to order seats for the new stand. Something tells me that he won't be getting another job anytime soon.
Stop!
At the beginning of the summer, I made a video about Inverness and the mess they were in after being relegated from the Championship. In the video, there were talks about mismanagement from the higher-ups, especially Scott Gardiner, and the mess they had found themselves in financially. Well, you would hope that over the summer break, a chance for a reset would come, where someone competent would come in and at least get the club going in the right direction. That hasn't happened though, has it? Inverness's summer has been a bit of a rollercoaster, except it's not like something you'd find in Disney World or M&D's, and more like the death spiral concept. Over the summer, we have seen more issues with squad building, Duncan Ferguson still being in charge, issues with releasing players, a takeover by some crypto weirdo, a competent guy coming in said competent guy leaving within a day because of said crypto weirdo, it being revealed that the crypto weirdo was a fraud, and now Portuguese investors are coming in, with Duncan Ferguson being backed by Sir Alex Ferguson. Just a standard summer in Scottish football then. So, in this video, I give a recap of the summer of madness that has taken place in the Highlands, because clearly I haven't talked about this club enough on this channel. So let's go to the beginning of the summer, a time where clubs will reassess their squads, decide who stays and who goes, and look at who to bring in. Well, Inverness managed to make a mess of that. When it comes to letting players go at the end of their contracts, 99% of the time, the club will let them know well in advance, allowing them time to sort out a new club for themselves in time for the upcoming season. Inverness, for some reason, didn't do that. Players were left unknowing as to whether or not they would still have a contract at the club. Even as late as the end of June, there were still questions over who was actually staying at the club. People only knew about players leaving when a social media post from either the player themselves announcing their new club or when their new club announced them. With the players who were leaving, however, it was still a mess. First, we have Cameron Harper, who left the club to go to Carlisle United on a free transfer. Harper, at the time of the move, was under the age of 23, meaning that if Cali offered him a contract and he turned it down to go to another club, Cali would be eligible for compensation as a development fee. This, when you consider the financial predicament the club is in, could prove to be a valuable source of income for a club struggling financially. But in an interview with Football League World, Paul Simpson, who is the manager of Carlisle United, came out and said that the financial benefit from a deal agreed with the club was a big positive as they signed him for free. Inverness had announced the deal was an undisclosed fee, but Simpson goes on to say, there are issues going on there, so we've got him on a free. Whereas he could have cost us a couple of 100,000 at least in compensation. Yes, you heard me right, a player that could have earned a 6-figure sum was able to go for free. This isn't the only player departure that the club messed up with though, as we now go to the complete farce that was the Aaron Doran saga. Doran had been at Inverness since 2011, playing in 289 league games in both the Premiership and Championship. He was a club legend, having been involved in the Cup final win in 2015 and staying with the club through the tough times that has been the last few seasons. Doran couldn't help Inverness stay out of trouble this season, however, as in a game against Raith Rovers back in April, he sustained a knee injury that needed operation. His contract, however, was up at the end of the season, and Inverness, being Inverness, refused to pay for the surgery. The club cancelled on 2 occasions an opportunity to have the surgery that would allow him to play again at some point during the summer. Instead, his surgery had to be crowdfunded after news got out with Shane Sutherland, another former Cali player, setting up a GoFundMe for Doran. Doran's also put out a statement on Instagram saying how the club gave him his P45 by email rather than talking face to face with him, which, for someone who has played nearly 400 games for you, is a disgraceful way to treat them. The fundraiser smashed its target of £5,000, with donations coming from fellow professionals and fans from all over Scotland, helping out when the club couldn't. When it came to replacing the players who left, it was made apparent that the club would be looking at bringing through youth players. This was something I both praised and criticised in the last video, as whilst yes, it was good for the club to bring through local youngsters, I questioned how on earth they would get to Kelty. Thankfully, the Kelty move was called off, so this move is more feasible, and the club announced the signing of 6 young players all joining the first team. Keith Breyer, Ethan Cairns, Callum Mackay, Matthew Strachan and Robbie Thompson all joined from the club's academy, showing their commitment to bringing players through the system, whilst their 6th signing was Cameron Ferguson on a 1-year deal. Wait a minute. Has Duncan just signed his own son? Anyway, 3 more academy graduates moved to the first team, along with a bunch of other signings either permanently or on loan, all being under 23. So, how has this turnover affected the performances on the pitch? As a full-time club in League 1, you should be aiming to get back into the Championship. As I said in the previous video, it is difficult to remain financially sustainable when full-time in League 1, as there is less TV money, prize money, and ticket money. Oh no! A 3-0 win against Bonnyrigg Rose, a team I predicted to finish near the bottom of League 2, was their only win, with defeats to Annan, Arbroath for penalties and a 6-0 drubbing at the hands of Dundee. The League Cup campaign was a disaster. The league campaign hasn't started off well either, with a draw to 10-man Dumbarton, another loss to Annan, a draw to 10-man Montrose, and a 0-0 draw to Kelty. Understandably, fans are not happy. The fans were already boycotting over the board situation, with the attendance against Bonnyrigg being a little over 800, and now even more people are calling for Duncan Ferguson to leave the club. But now we get to what we are all here for, the off-the-pitch shenanigans. So let's start off at the beginning of July. As mentioned in the last video, the club hadn't filed their accounts to Companies House, but this was sorted on the 3rd of July. These accounts for the financial year ending on the 30th of May 2023 showed the club had made a loss of £588,000 in a year which included making a Scottish Cup final. Whilst the money made from the Cup final itself won't be in the accounts as the game was played on the 3rd of June 2023, it was something that showed great concern and the need for investment, something which was already well known. Well, on the 26th of July, the club put out a statement stating, "The Board of Directors of Inverness Caledonian Thistle Football Club can confirm that they have accepted an offer for majority shareholding in the club. The club has been involved in intensive discussions with 77 Ventures, a UK-based sports, entertainment and leisure group, and are confident their investment will secure the future of the club." So, great news then. Cali will have new owners who will keep the club afloat. The board will be replaced and everyone will be happy. That was the mood for about 30 minutes. Inverness Caledonian Thistle present Club Getting Hit by Dodgy Owner. As with any new owner, people will be snooping on Companies House to get an idea of how trustworthy the new guy is. This new guy was not trustworthy at all, as it turns out. 77 Ventures had, according to the most recent balance sheet from September 2023, capital and reserves totalling £15,898. Oh, those are in brackets. Oh, that's debt. They have no money. They were also based out of a semi-detached house in Windsor, which, to be fair, probably cost a lot of money. But the main concern was over the single employee at 77 Ventures, Ketan Makwana. Now, who is Ketan Makwana? Well, Mr. Makwana is an entrepreneur, with his other company being Cryptolytics Limited, whose most recent accounts show a capital worth of £20,000. Also in the red. He has previously tried to buy out Hayes and Yedding, who are way down the pyramid in English non-league, but according to a LinkedIn post, somewhere he seems to spend a lot of time, he has been trying to be a club owner for 3 to 4 years, seeing 6 other attempts fall through. He claims he has innovative plans for the club, and seeing as he is quite active in getting his name out there are videos of him talking about his ideas. Let's hear some, shall we?
The next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion, the word phygital is going to be coming into place. Now, for anyone that doesn't really understand what phygital means, it's a cross between physical and digital. Phygital.
I see.
What the fuck? If we go back to our wonderful world of Companies House, we can see what other businesses Mr. Phygital has been involved in, and the track record is not good. Mass Appeal Media dissolved 2014, Makwana left in 2013. AMS Academy still exists but has £16,000 worth of debt. Makwana left in 2022. Ketan Makwana Consulting Limited, defunct in 2012. Hey, I know someone else who went defunct in 2012. Enterprise Lab Limited still exists and Makwana is still a director. £50,000 worth of debt. Makwana Consulting dissolved in 2020. Pinky Strategies dissolved in 2018. Smofo Limited dissolved 2019. 77 Ventures, as previously mentioned, £16,000 of debt and the one he is using to buy Inverness. Niteo Limited dissolved 2024. Eli App Limited. Makwana is an active director. Debts of £87,000. I Am Change GIC. Makwana is an active director. Accounts overdue by 5 months now. 77 Media dissolved 2024. And finally, Cryptolytics Limited. Makwana is an active director. £20,000 of debt. With 77 Ventures, Makwana is not alone, with other shareholders including James Dai Nguyen, a Vietnamese American who, according to his Twitter bio, where his handle is I am Jimmy Nguyen, is a global blockchain and emerging tech leader, also known as a load of bollocks. Back to the Highlands though, where on the 31st of July, Inverness put out a statement about the appointment of a new interim chairman as Ross Morrison had already left the club. This new interim chairman was Panos Thomas, who is a retired orthopaedic surgeon and tutor specialising in sports and knee injuries according to the club. Panos Thomas, with his expertise in knee injuries and other sport injuries, allegedly suggested that Aaron Doran walk off his knee injury. You know, the one he needed to crowdfund surgery for if he wanted to play football again because the club wouldn't pay it. Thomas said in the statement that, I have been hugely impressed by the drive, energy and vision of Mr. Makwana and look forward to continuing to work with him in the coming weeks as our legal representatives discuss the fine detail needed to complete the deal. Oh god, they're going through with it. On the 1st of August, the Inverness Courier had an interview with Makwana where he talks about how the club is close to insolvency, how he is financing the deal, and what fans can expect. He mentions giving the club a trade creditors relief scheme to help settle club debts for the month. He has committed to paying the wages till the end of the month to avoid the club going into insolvency, how he is trying to get the deal done swiftly, and that he does have the money to run the club. The insolvency he talks about doesn't seem that far off, as on the 12th of August, it was revealed that Cali hadn't paid Dundee and Ross County the respective loan fees for both Cammy Kerr and Alex Samuel. The Inverness Courier article did also mention failed projects in the club's attempts to raise funds. Well, remember the Battery Farm plan? The one that got rejected due to people sledging in the area? As of the last video, it was being put to appeal. Well, it's being put to appeal by Intelligent Land Investments, with Inverness Caledonian Thistle's name nowhere to be seen. So, if the plan goes through now, the club will not get any financial benefit from it. All of this talk made it seem like Makwana taking over was inevitable, but then on the 13th of August, the club put out another statement. This time, however, it was to announce that Alan Savage would be taking charge of the struggling club. Their words, not mine. And that negotiations with 77 Ventures had been suspended. They also announced that the club is working with GRM Marketing to gain investment and hope the community come together to support the club. So who is Alan Savage? Savage was the chairman of Cali back in the mid-2000s, but he had to leave due to time commitments. Since then, he has been the chairman of the Orient Group, a large industrial recruitment firm that works in life sciences, renewables, oil and gas, construction and infrastructure projects. And in case you were wondering, the group ran at a profit in 2022 of £3.5 million. Clearly, someone who has experience of running both a football club and a successful business. Sounds like Cali are finally on the up then, doesn't it? Well, going through Company's House will show that Inverness comes up twice on Savage's profile, with his first appointment being between 2006 and 2008, and of course the most recent one showing him joining on the 12th of August 2024 and resigning on the 12th of August 2024. Wait, hang on, resigned?
What is going on here?
Well, Ketan Makwana put up a post on LinkedIn talking about usual LinkedIn bollocks, but mentions he is still in the process of buying a football club. Someone asked about if the deal is done, posting the appointment of Savage as a director. Ketan replied saying he was working on it, with an image showing that Savage's position had been terminated. This was all on the 14th of August, but the next day, the Press and Journal released an interview with Alan Savage, where he says he has paid £200,000 to cover immediate bills, and it is mentioned that £50,000 went towards Puma to pay for the kits, and that the club is £800,000 in debt. In an STV interview, Savage does suggest that there are investors ready to provide much needed funds to the club, but that of course depends on if he is actually still at the club. On the bright side though, Scott Gardner's gone. Another bright side is that a large chunk of debt have been wiped thanks to Alan Savage's work. Is he in a job or not? Well, Savage was never brought in to be a director, but as a consultant. Clearly, Mr. Makwana is talking shite, and a mistake was made on Company's House. Anyway, Savage held an emergency meeting with creditors on the 19th of August, which saw £3 million worth of debts be wiped, including £2.1 million from loans owed to former chairman Ross Morrison. The weird part about this was that it was revealed that Sir Alex Ferguson offered to help, but he also backed Duncan Ferguson, which is an interesting choice, I guess. It was also revealed that talks are ongoing with a group of Portuguese investors who are already involved in football, having recently bought over Serie A side Monza, and are looking to add a club in both England and Scotland to their portfolio. Whilst it does seem that Inverness might end up becoming a part of some multi-club ownership model where players from the top team hoover up talent from those below and send players back on loan, it is almost certainly better than just not existing at all. The investors also have interest in South America and Iberia, so we could be seeing some interesting faces turn up on the shores of the Moray Firth. That'll be some culture shock. It has also been revealed that there are 3 other potential investment groups at the beginning of the summer. A Chinese conglomerate who pulled out due to the CCP limiting investment in football outside of China, and 2 other unknown investors who never put a bid in. We also need to talk about Scott Gardner. Well, I say we. Might as well let Savage do the talking.
What do you feel that's down to that's maybe not been there before?
Trust, transparency, and it all goes down to one individual who sat on 7,000 unread emails. And I'm probably going to end up in court with the bloke, I imagine, with his ego, but he stopped communication, he killed communication. People wouldn't come to the games because of him. Not just the fan. I wouldn't come to the games because of him. I just couldn't be in the same room as the bloke.
I presume we're on about the former CEO, because we've reached out to him.
Scott Gardner.
Yeah. And do you feel as though that's the theme that's run through everything in terms of your correspondence with businesses or fans?
Yeah, everyone that I've spoken to, nobody, had the faith that what they were asking, the questions they were asking would be answered properly. A lot of bullshit.
Was Gardner actually doing anything at Inverness? 7,000 unread emails. This man was hated at Hearts thanks to not ordering seats for a new stand. He was hated at Dundee, and now we have Inverness fans and a former director wanting him fired into Loch Ness, hopefully getting eaten up by Nessie. This man needs banning from football, because when I mentioned earlier about other investors, our old friend Ketan Makwana was who Scott Gardner made the preferred candidate to buy the club, despite the fact that there was no proof of funds made to the club. Thankfully, it seems incredibly unlikely that Makwana is going to be involved in Inverness now, not with Savage in charge of the deal. But if he does want to get into football up here, he can follow in the footsteps of the old Inverness mould and move down to Fife. There is a club up for sale. Speaking of Ketan Makwana, I have to give a shout out to Stuart Findlay of the Press and Journal for doing a proper deep dive into Makwana's past. I'm only going to talk about the Inverness section, but I will leave a link in the description for the full article because my god is this guy beyond dodgy. The article talks about what Makwana's vision for Inverness involved, which lists off ideas such as a 150-bedroom hotel, a player ecosystem which would include housing, schooling and shops for players and their families, effectively a company town, an esports arena, and a fan park that would encourage tourism to the area. As previously mentioned, there is no way he would have the money to do this, let alone the supposed buyout fee for the club, reported to be £2.5 million for 50% of the club's shares. That's right, £2.5 million for half of a League One club, which gives Inverness a higher valuation than whatever those weird Yankee investors were trying to buy Motherwell for, who are a stable Premiership outfit. With the news of these Portuguese investors, however, fans have opened up to the club again. The fans' boycott seeing 800 fans at League Cup games has ended, and at their most recent home game against Montrose, Cali saw an attendance of 1,902. The Portuguese investors also promise, investment, and there is hope that the squad will see players coming in to help the club return to the Championship. In my pre-season predictions video that I made, I put Cali 5th, mainly due to the fact that they were in just this complete mess. But with light at the end of the tunnel, it seems more likely that a return to the Championship at the first time of asking is possible. Hopefully, I won't have to make another video of these lot in 3 months' time. What do you mean there's another statement? I've already finished making the video. Oh, for fuck! On the 28th of August, Inverness put out another statement in regards to what has been going on behind the scenes. The statement is split into 3 sections: findings, options and future, so we might as well go through them. Alan Savage in his time has contributed £200,000 to the club since coming in. 77 ventures were deemed suitable owners by Scott Gardner, even though auditors have come to the not difficult conclusion that they are not suitable to run a football club. Draft accounts for 2024 show a loss of £1.7 million, with debts being £400,000. £1 million are required to pay off debts and get through the current season. The club's financial situation would be fine if the Battery Farm plan went through, but the licence has been sold, bringing in £250,000. When it comes to options for the club, the three options are crowdfunding specific. This is centred around the sale of land for the Battery Farm, crowdfunding in general, which is fundraising by local businesses and fans, and option C, which is labelled as the A word. I think we know what that word is. The future section does, however, remain somewhat hopeful, saying how Alan Savage asked shareholders if they want him to run the club and to have full control of the club until a buyer is found. The plan is to review this arrangement every 3 years. 3 years? Where's the Portuguese investors gone? I mean, at least it's someone competent running the ship now, but please just get something sorted. Oh, another statement? Amicable deal has been struck that saves club from administration. All stakeholders should be delighted. That's great news! Inverness Caledonian Thistle are saved from administration, and I won't have to make any more videos on them. Let us all rejoice. I might be allowed to travel up the A92 if required. Of course, this is fantastic news for Inverness fans, as they will finally have a functioning club after what has been a rather tumultuous last 5 years. Alan Savage came out saying, the stakeholders and fans should be really happy tonight that Cali Thistle are not going into administration. I have the responsibility of fixing it, but I remind people it will take time. It's still a tight ship, and it will take methodical work moving forward. We won't be signing Lionel Messi tomorrow, there is still a bridge to cross. Hopefully, for their sake, they will be able to represent the Highlands with pride and not have to worry about losing their club anymore. And I don't have to worry about making another video on them. Hopefully, I won't have to make another video of these lot in 3 months' time. Alan Savage came out saying, the stakeholders and fans should be really happy tonight that Cali Thistle are not going into administration. Hopefully, for their sake, they will be able to represent the Highlands with pride and not have to worry about losing their club anymore. And I don't have to worry about making another video on them. Hopefully this doesn't become a trilogy or something akin to those superhero cinematic universes.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
At this rate, I might as well rebrand my channel to Inverness Caledonian Thistle Updates. I thought that with Alan Savage in charge and his messages of hope, I would not be having to talk about them for a while. Well, unfortunately, it seems the ride never ends for Inverness, as they are once again a club on the brink. They haven't got an investor or new owner in, Scott Gardner is still lingering about, Duncan Ferguson is still at the club but working for free, Panos Thomas has left and crowdfunders have been set up in a failed attempt to stop the club from going into administration. Thankfully, I have still been saving stuff for the past month and a bit since the last video, just in case anything went wrong again. So in what is now a part 3 of the Inverness Caledonian Thistle saga, if you want to get up to speed, I will be making a playlist with these videos because clearly it's needed at this point. Let's look into the events that have been happening at our favourite Highland football club since the last video. We might as well start with what has been happening on the pitch. After the release of the last video, Inverness won their next 2 games against Queen of the South and Stirling Albion, which made me wonder if the video was put on in the changing room before a game as a source of motivation. If that is the case, first of all, hello Duncan. Secondly, I should make more videos on Wraith Rovers. We'd be unbeatable. This would then be followed by a 2-2 draw with Alloa after being 2-0 up with 20 minutes to go, a 1-1 draw with Cove, a 0-0 draw with Stenosmere, a 1-0 loss to Arbroath, a loss on penalties to Championship side Livingston. By the way, please change the graphic, that definitely reads as something else at first glance. And a 1-0 win against Annan Athletic. I guess my videos can only be used as motivation for a certain amount of time. Clearly, things aren't going well on the pitch, with fans still calling for Duncan Ferguson to be sacked, or what would be in this case to resign since there's no compensation fee. So, the situation on the pitch hasn't changed much, aside from a couple of wins to get fans' hopes up. just for a little bit before bringing them right back down to earth. But it's off the pitch where the drama continues. First of all, we need to bring back an old favourite. Well, not really a favourite, but Scott Gardner is back trying to fleece the club. On the 6th of September, it came out that Gardner wanted £70,000 paid back to him as a result of previous loans he had given to the club. Someone who wasn't very happy about this was Alan Savage. Savage revealed that the £70,000 was split with £50,000 owed to the concert company that Gardner had set up and £20,000 being personal loans. Savage came out against this, saying, "It may be that the club were carrying out work for the concert company and Gardner is getting paid by the club whilst doing work for the concert company. I don't know the legalities of that, but why should the club pay for the concert company? It doesn't make sense whatsoever. The club wasn't a shareholder in the concert company, but evidently it lost about £950,000 that wasn't reported with the liquidator. Gardner has opened a Pandora's box. There are a load of implications of it, and we will go through the detail meticulously to put up a robust defence." It was also reported that Scott Gardner was being paid £140,000 and is wanting a severance payment, meaning he would be getting about £200,000. Savage responded to this by saying, "In my eyes, he's been incompetent, yet he's putting the club on the brink of administration. He's someone who failed on so many fronts at this club." Savage, during this time, however, was in the middle of a massive firefighting operation. Figuratively, of course, the Caledonian Stadium hasn't been burned down in some insurance fraud scheme. Yet. There are multiple revenue avenues that the club could be a part of, but haven't come to fruition, one of which being the Inverness and Cromarty Firth Green Freeport. It is said that the reason for this is due to the club's inability to provide the required information during the application period, despite receiving multiple reminders over a period of several months. The other potential revenue stream has been the battery farm, which is still in limbo right now with the initial application being denied and is currently under appeal to the Scottish Government. The issue they are facing with it right now is the time it takes to go through these processes, as time is something they are very much running out of. On the 1st of October, it was revealed that they were in contact with a company called BDO. What does this company do, you may ask? Well, they are administrators, and they have experience dealing with football clubs that are in financial trouble, with them being involved in the Hearts administration case, which saw the clubs survive thanks to the fans, Dunfermline, which again saw fans rally together to save the club, and Rangers, which... let's get back to Inverness, shall we? Inverness entered the pre-administration stage on the 27th of September under the plan named Operation Kessock, meaning that the club are looking at what measures they can take before administrators are brought in. Clubs obviously want to avoid this, as it would mean a 15-point deduction for the current season, which, looking at their current situation, would almost certainly mean relegation to League 2, a 5-point deduction for the following season, and a licence review, meaning if they get their professional licence revoked, they would be kicked out of the SPFL. The pre-administration period is supposed to last between 1 to 2 weeks, and is at this point where what the club needed was announced. £200,000 by October 16th. This led to a club statement where Panos Thomas updated fans on what the situation was like behind the scenes. It starts off talking about the situation in August and September, including mentions of the 2023 account showing the £600,000 loss that was made, the negotiations involving Kelty and Makwana, Alan Savage coming back, stuff that was covered in the last video. The statement does go into more detail into the financial appraisal, detailing some creditors and where issues lie. During the 23-24 season, the club made a loss of £1.2 million, which, for a championship club that hadn't been relegated from the Premiership the previous season, is mental. And that they are predicting similar loss-making levels for this season. The club owes £600,000 to trade creditors and HMRC, with £125,000 owed to kit suppliers Puma, which they have to pay each year as part of a 4-year contract. They also have a provision against litigation valued at over £170,000, which is being put against them by a former CEO. And I wonder who that could be. They again talk about the cash flow issues where they need £200,000 by the end of October, the issues surrounding the battery farm, and the leasing of the land surrounding the stadium. They also mention they have had talks with the SPFL, where the body said they were already aware of the issues facing them, and with BDO administrators. The most important part of the statement is the section around what the next steps are to help save the club. It mentions how Alan Savage has been keeping the club afloat with personal funding, but he can't do this for much longer, and that a solution needs to be found. They mentioned that debt by May 2025 is set to be between £1.4 and £1.6 million, and a balance sheet that reads at negative £3.8 million at the same time. This is followed with the immediate plans of the board. The first being a Save ICT crowdfunding campaign, set up by the club itself with the goal of raising £200,000 by October 16th, asking fans to email the board for ways to raise money, and that the club would be holding an open meeting with shareholders and fans on the 7th of October. So, the club appears to have a plan. Cost cutting is of course being implemented, with Duncan Ferguson working for free, which is good of him, I guess, and that fans are being encouraged to help the club out. Another prospective buyer has come out with Mike Edwards claiming to have made 2 attempts to invest in the club, but seeing as he wants to move the club's training to Kelty, I don't think he'll be welcomed by fans. So the club appears to have a plan and are looking to go in the right direction. That was fine for not even 24 hours, as following the previous statement, another one was released with it being announced Panos Thomas had left the club. This wasn't down to anything malicious or jumping ship like other previous board members, this was down to family reasons, so I'll let him off. In the statement, it was also announced that the GoFundMe had been set up and again encouraged people to help support the club. Another news piece would later come out the same day about a potential investor looking to negotiate a deal. Ketan Makwana. Why do I have to talk about him again? Ketan, go away. You're not getting to buy the club. Nobody wants you here. Just give it up, please. Before the open night, Alan Savage revealed that there was international interest when it came to investment for the club, with businessmen from Denmark, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States of America having supposed interest in the club. But what was revealed during the open night brought great concern. As mentioned, administrators seemed likely if the £200,000 target hadn't been met, along with getting new investors or a buyer, and the total owed to directors had also increased to £3.42 million. Now for the big stuff with that man Scott Gardner.
Get ready, everybody. He's about to do something stupid.
First, we have the kit deal with Puma, which sees the club pay the sportswear brand £125,000, which, to put it into simple terms, is unsustainable. To pay that off through merchandising alone, they would need to sell 2,500 shirts at £50 each, with all the money going to Puma themselves, let alone paying for all the other costs involved in the creation and selling of replica kits. Alan Savage questioned this, saying that a deal between the two should have only cost £60,000. We then have the Cammy Harper sale, which, as I mentioned previously, Carlisle got a promising young player on a free. Gardner personally emailed Carlisle to say that they didn't need to pay the compensation fee, which would have come to £80,000. For the 5 years that the club Gardner was able to run the club without being questioned, which, considering the actions he has performed, this is serious malpractice. Back during the COVID season, which ended early, he was in support of null and voiding the season, which, if that is what would have happened, would have seen the club miss out on £375,000 in prize money. How the fuck can you be so incompetent at your job? I'm angry at this man, and I'm not even an Inverness supporter. This man is a liability to any football club, no matter what level, and people like this should be blacklisted from the sport. Is there any way that he can be placed behind bars for this? He has even decided to come out to the Daily Mail, quite fitting seeing how they're nicknamed the Daily Fail, saying he had a plan to save the club, which would have involved giving serious consideration to a fresh rescue plan from Ketan Makwana. He also mentions suing the board of directors and others over a continued malicious campaign of defamatory and untrue statements, which, if that's the case, go ahead. We all know what you have done. Stuart Finlay of the Press and Journal has made a 3-part written piece solely on the complete farce that has been Scott Gardner's time at Inverness, which I highly recommend giving a read. But in short, we see how Gardner failed to take on board any criticism, had 28,000 unread emails, the Kelty training plan, his poor relationship with fans and staff, showing players 3D models of hotels he was planning instead of letting them get on with training, messing about with injured players' contracts, failed deals with multiple businesses, the concert business, the battery fund, failure to become a part of the Freeport, Ketan fucking Makwana. Scott Gardner, you are a parasite. You have been hounded out at every club and now we all see why. You have effectively killed a club, which before you took over considered themselves to be the pride of the Highlands. Now they look to be dead in the water, and it is through your incompetence as a CEO. I wouldn't even want you at Dunfermline. That's how bad you are. In the nicest way possible, get to Where was I? Oh yeah, Alan Savage would go on to talk about how a controlled administration could be the best way forward with a chance to restructure and rebuild the club. With administration, Savage believes the club would be forced to go part-time, which would see a reduction in costs for player wages, but would make it easier for players to come through the academy, along with getting players from other Highland clubs who are able to make that jump up to the SPFL. Of course, there is a downside of club staff losing jobs and suppliers. Typically, local businesses will lose out, but Savage did admit there will be some players who will move on, which we would try to mitigate at Orion, Savage's recruitment company, and we would try to find people jobs. We will try and look after some of the suppliers who may suffer. We are a community club at heart. We want to do the right things. We are in a mess due to 5 years of neglect and we have to face up to that. Savage also came out saying administration would cost £400,000 to £500,000 and that he'd be willing to pay about £350,000 to support the club through the period, once again showing his commitment to the club. On the 15th of October, the day before the deadline for administration, Scott Young, who became the interim chairman after the departure of Panos Thomas, put out a statement on the club's Twitter account, stating, "On behalf of the club, I would like to thank all those who have donated to our GoFundMe page. This morning, we were sitting at just over £80,000, which is a fantastic effort from you all. I would just like to clarify that should we go into administration, all funds raised will be used to fund the club's expenses in the administration process and would not be expended on professional fees. There are no penalties for not reaching our target goal, and indeed the first payments have arrived at the club over the weekend." On the 16th of October, it was revealed that the club had found a mystery Highland-based investor who was willing to make a bid of £1.2 million in exchange for 50.45% of the club, as long as the club did not go into administration, along with guarantees over the club's £3 million worth of debt. It was also revealed that they had held talks with Anders Holch Poulsen, the Faroese businessman who owns ASOS, FC Midtjylland, and the largest concentration of land in Scotland held by any one person. But the debts the club owed, just ignore that Poulsen is worth £7 billion, along with concerns over a potential conflict of interest in the event of Inverness qualifying for Europe due to his ownership of Midtjylland, have seen a potential takeover deal stall. But with all this, it was announced that Inverness would hold an emergency board meeting on the 17th of October. After this meeting, we got another club announcement saying, "The board can confirm that the time for any interested parties to offer for the club has come and gone. We are currently looking at our position and will make an announcement in the coming days." So, Inverness aren't in administration. Yet. But what about the mystery investor? Well, the mystery investor did reveal himself to be David Anderson, who is from Moray and is a specialist in the IT and finance sector. Boy, do they need some expertise in the finance sector. Who was assisted by Gordon Ritchie of GRM Marketing and Don Lawson, who is also from Inverness. Gordon Ritchie did say to the press after the meeting that the board members discussed the options for the club. It was a good, positive meeting. Time is a problem, but my investor wants to make sure he knows what he is going to step into. With all this said and done, Inverness would hold up for another few days, but in the meantime, the Inverness Caledonian Thistle Supporters Trust held an open meeting on the 18th of October where they discussed the financial situation the club finds itself in. The club, however, would put out another statement on the 18th of October, saying, whilst the deal was not reached, negotiations on a purchase ended amicably and DA Capital are welcome back to the table once the club's financial situation is under control. The board will make a further statement in due course. To be fair, I am questioning if DA Capital have the capital to take over Inverness, seeing as according to their balance sheet from the 31st of December 2023, they have capital and reserves of £246. But don't worry, his other companies that he is a director of are listed as being Swish Services, who have £24,500 worth of debt, and AP Systems Holdings, who have capital and reserves of £43,220. Good thing that never went through then. Later on in the day, however, an Inverness Courier article came out with reports a 6-member consortium of Highland-based businessmen were looking at putting an offer in by the 21st. Don Lawson being the frontman. Lawson has experience of being a director at a football club with Ross County. He said in his interview with the local paper, there is a consortium in deep discussions as we speak. There is a potential bid going to be on that table by first thing Monday morning. These guys don't want the club to go into administration and have the support of 1 or 2 significant other names. He does also mention it is a consortium of large shareholders, some of whom are ex-directors. I swear to God if Scott Gardner's name is involved. All of this ultimately didn't matter, as on the evening of the 18th of October, Inverness Caledonian Thistle announced that a notice of intention to appoint administrators had been filed and administration would begin on Monday or Tuesday. So, what does administration mean for Inverness? On the pitch, they will be given a 15-point deduction, putting them bottom on -3 points. Next season, should they escape administration, they'll be starting on -5 points. It likely means there will be an exodus of players and staff as cost-cutting measures along with trying to get deals done with creditors to help reduce the debt. When it comes to teams entering administration, in the 21st century we've had 13 other teams enter the same circumstances Inverness currently find themselves in. Queen's Park in 2000, which saw the club sell Hampden to the SFA and ultimately survived. Greenock Morton in 2001 were taken over by a consortium but dropped to the 3rd Division. Now League 2, again survived. Clydebank and Airdrie in 2002. Airdrie went under but a new Airdrie was set up and bought Clydebank's licence. More information in this video I made a while back. Motherwell and Dundee in 2004, both survived. Livingston in 2005, demoted to the 3rd Division, survived. Gretna in 2008, went under, again another previous video if you want to learn more. Livingston, again in 2009, same as 2005 with their demotion to the 3rd Division and again survived. Dundee in 2011, 25 points deduction, which saw them get relegated to the 1st Division, but again survived. Rangers in 2012, Rangers died and reformed in the 3rd Division. Dunfermline in 2012, 10-point deduction, dropped down to the 2nd Division, but survived. And finally, Hearts, who went into administration in 2013 after the departure of Vladimir Romanov, again another subject of a previous video, deducted 15 points and were relegated to the Championship, but were bought up by fans and survived. So, with 4 of 13 going under, it means that Inverness has a 30% chance of going out of business. Hopefully, new buyers are found, whether it is a new consortium or a fan-led takeover. A club, no matter how big or small, represents a community, and having that taken away from them is something that should be avoided at all costs. I had hopes after the last video that Inverness would be on the up. It seems I have jinxed them, but this time I really mean it. Please don't go under. In the likely event of a 4th video, I want it to be them being saved from going under. They could be in the Highland League for all I, and of course Inverness, fans care about. Cali fans just want a club to support, just like the rest of us do.